Hi there, everybody. This is Mike Hancock. I'm the chairman of the Circle of Excellence Group, and I'm enlightened, as you can see from the light behind me. Let's just turn that down a little for you. And thank you so much for the positive feedback on the last Facebook Live I did. It was great to be able to help so many of you, to give you different insights as well as we really go through this time that is unprecedented in history. So, and when I say unprecedented, well, unprecedented in our history, because of course we've had the plague and everything else in the past. I have a lot to talk with you about in the time that we've got here at the moment. So let's get started and let's get underway. I wanted to give you some real topics to think about. I wanted to give you some ways to handle everything while you're at home as well, doing your self-isolation. And it was fascinating for me. I've made a whole bunch of notes here, which of course, given the way Facebook Live set up, to you appear backwards, but because I've never done Facebook Live very much, certainly not with notes until the other day, I didn't know that they were backwards. But here's the beautiful thing, and this brings me to my very first point. There are signs and symbols that are appearing to us on the planet and have done all throughout our lives, and most of us are oblivious because most of us are not present. And that means that we miss things that are right in front of our face. So thank you for the people that said, oh, your signs are backwards. I guess they're backwards now. There's my notes. Your signs are backwards. Of course they're backwards. Everything is backwards on the planet now. So therefore, every way in which you've thought in the past has now been turned around to think another way. So if you're thinking and trying to deal with this COVID situation, isolation, what's happening to your business, your job, anything like that, with the same mindset that you had even 2-3 weeks ago, you're already out of the game. The mindset that got you to where you are today is not going to create your future for you. You need a new mindset. So what about signs and symbols? What about being present? I love the concept of words, and I want to share with you the word present, because when we go to somebody's birthday, what do we give them? We give them a present. So present, our present to ourselves is to be present. And that means to understand and look for the signs and symbols that are happening in your life at the moment. So even when I'm looking at this video and I can see myself on Facebook Live, I find it hilarious that the other day, my notes that I was holding up to you are backwards because everything's backwards. I find it hilarious today that I decided to turn on the light and now it appears that I'm the enlightened person, which is totally by accident because I'm not any more enlightened than any of you. And I'm wearing my shirt because I did find another shirt in isolation that has the sergeant stripes on there as well. So I find that fascinating as well. So I guess I'm taking a little bit of a lead here, but I'm certainly not telling you that I'm the captain, the field marshal, or the general in this. There's plenty of people to take those roles. So let's have a look at some of the signs and symbols that you may be noticing at the moment. So some of you are watching YouTube. What ads are popping up? Some of you are looking out your window. What's happening around you? For instance, Lundy Jack, my partner, has done a lot of her recent life in the last 5-6 years by relying on signs and symbols, billboards. So when she was considering going out with me many years ago, she was invited into the cockpit of the plane between Johannesburg and Cape Town, which never happens post 9/11, but it happened to Lundy, of course. And she got to sit there and sit next to the pilot and come for a landing into Cape Town. At that same time, in the back of her mind is, here's this guy, Mike, that she's really interested in. And a billboard pops up right as the plane lands to her right that says, I dare you to look away. So it also says live exceptionally or live greatly or something like that. So she took that as a sign that what she was thinking about me was the right thing. And then when she went home, over the next couple of weeks, real estate agents had hammered up boards all around her house, and all they said was, call Mike, call Mike, call Mike, call Mike, and a phone number, which wasn't mine, of course. But these are the signs and symbols that we need to look for now, because the system that we used to get us where we've got is not working. It is broken, and that's why we are where we are. Our system is broken. So I don't care what you think the system is, the financial system. I went to the ATM yesterday. It didn't have any money. So I had to wait until they restocked it. I went to the supermarket before lockdown, and guess what? In South Africa, which is where we are at the moment, there's not a lot of pandemonium at all in the streets because people have been through Ebola and all the other diseases and everything. This is just another disease, or just another virus. However, the fact is that some people were stocking up on certain things. There's no doubt about that. So your mindset needs to move with the times. Now, fascinatingly, as I was doing a little bit of research, thinking, what am I going to share that's going to be really useful for you guys today? I thought to share just a few things. I've got a large list and I may not get through all of them. And if you like these sort of updates, let me know and I'll keep doing. Just put it in the chat and I'll keep doing them if you find them helpful. If you don't find them helpful, I'll stop. No problem. So let's come back to signs and symbols. Where can they be? They can be in sounds that are around you. I remember that I was at an event in 2011, actually in Cape Town, and I was saying to people in the event, you need to listen to the next thing I'm going to say because it's the most important thing I'm going to say all weekend. If you don't listen to this, chances are your business will fail and die. And with that, an ambulance went doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo straight past the venue. And I seem to be the only one who noticed that divine timing of the ambulance after I've said your business may die. So to me, that's locking it in. I explained it to the audience. They all laughed nervously like, surely he's crazy. So then we all got back to work and I said the same thing again. Now you need to listen to this, or you may be in a position where your business over the next little while may die. Guess what happened? The ambulance comes back. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Now everybody's laughing, thinking this is a joke. It's not a joke. You see, all throughout our lives, we have been guided. Whether you believe in the spiritual world, whether you believe in your ancestors are looking after you, divine beings, angels, it doesn't matter what your belief is. Whether you come from the Christian faith, the Muslim faith, the Jewish faith, it does not matter, providing you have that word faith. And if you do have that word faith, then you'll probably realize that everything that we see and touch around us is not necessarily real. In fact, if you want to spend some time on YouTube, you can go and have a look at some things in New Science where they break down the universe into what we actually know the universe to be now, which is a fractal universe. And a fractal universe made up of shapes like tetrahedrons and things that really resemble the platonic solids and those sort of shapes in many respects. But here's the thing behind it, is that it's very, very close to proof, and there's some wonderful learned people at the level of the Stephen Hawkings, the Michio Kakus, the Brian Coxes, and those sort of people that are some of the leading quantum physicists on the planet, saying that essentially our reality doesn't survive past what is in our spectrum at the moment. Meaning the supermarket that you thought was there is probably not actually there until you go to the supermarket. Fascinating stuff and all too big for this conversation. However, beware of the signs that you're being given at the moment, the books that pop out at you, the magazines that sit in your magazine rack, the sounds in your neighborhood, the people that ring you and tell you certain things, the shows that you watch on television, because all of those are going to have different signs for you at the moment. And if you're anywhere where you can still walk around and see things, be aware of what's happening around you. Be aware of not only from a physical perspective, but from a metaphysical perspective of what's happening around you. The second thing I wanted to share with you today is you've probably got a pet. Guess what? They are picking up on your nervousness, on your panic for some of you. I've talked to 3 people already this morning. It's just going on 9:30 my time. And all of them sounded panicked. So they had a panic in their voice. This is an uncertain time, but there's no need to panic. Life will change. There's no doubt about that. And it's going to have some long-term ramifications. But guess what? Unless you've got a deadly disease right at the moment, you're probably still going to be here, although your life may look different. So in looking at the people I was talking about this morning, I started talking to them about go and pat your dog, go and sit with your cat, make sure your horse is looked after. The animals of this world understand that things are changing. You know, the world is actually healing itself, and that's one of the beautiful outcomes of what we're experiencing at the moment. I don't know how many of you have seen the photos in Venice. We were in Venice in Italy in December, just prior to Christmas, and it was during the floods, and we're standing in San Marco Square watching the water bubble up there. And when you looked at the canal, quite frankly, I wouldn't have wanted to fall in that canal. I didn't want a bridge to collapse under me. It looked pretty disgusting. But today, the canals are clear. You can see the bottom of the canals, and dolphins are back in Venice. So be it. The animals of this world are coming back. And then we have, of course, China, one of the most polluted countries in the world. Go and have a look at the pollution statistics in China at the moment. This fall of industry all around the world is affecting the globe in a very, very positive way. Mother Gaia is healing herself because she waited too long for us to do that healing. Now, Amelia Kincaid wrote a fantastic book, and if you're looking for some books to read, I'm going to suggest some to you today. But for those of you that love animals and realize that whether they're the ant or the fly that I just shifted out of the way so I could put my feet down so I didn't squash him, you know, all of these are living spiritual beings having a physical experience. Amelia Kincaid's book was written many years ago called Straight from the Horse's Mouth. She's considered to be one of the top animal communicators on the planet. I would suggest that, you know, if you have not thought about your animal as being any more than a cat, a dog, a goldfish, a budgie, a whatever, that you grab Amelia's book and have a read of that at the moment and start really talking and reassuring your animals. Guess what? They've probably got more reassurance for many of us now than before. The next thing is, I love what my friend W. Mitchell said. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. And a lot of you gave me feedback about that statement, so I want to pick that up and give it to you in a different way, and in some ways recommend another book to you also. In fact, 2 books that I'm going to recommend now to you. In 2011, a company that I owned at the time called Soul Journeys decided that we would host that year's tour to Peru and Bolivia. And Peru and Bolivia, we went to the Inca sites, Cusco, Tehuantepec, some fantastic places. The purpose of that, saying that for you guys, is that we based the tour on a fantastic book that I first read the very first time I was in Peru in 1995. Yeah, it's a long time ago, 25 years ago. The book was called The Celestine Prophecy, James Redfield. Now, in the Celestine Prophecy, he talks about 4 control dramas, 4 of them that we have and that we operate in our lives. And all of us have a different way of relating with our fellow energies because we're sharing energetic space. And at the moment, some of you are actually learning what your partner is like for the first time in years, because guess what? You're not going to work separately at 8 o'clock in the morning and coming home separately at 8 o'clock at night, only to spend 8 hours sleeping. So the Celestine Prophecy control dramas are, and I'm going to share my number one firstly. My number one control drama, and many of you who know me will understand this, is that I'm aloof. And aloof literally means that I can distance myself from things. So if you've ever been to a networking event with me, guess what? You'll see me as being aloof. I don't tend to mix and mingle. even though I'm a speaker and even though I'm a semi-public figure, I'm actually an introvert. So I'm not comfortable necessarily in social settings or anything like that. It's not my vibe. I'm an only child. So my control drama is aloof. You may be the next one. You may be the interrogator. Now, the interrogator is somebody who always asks questions. You're probably that kid that said, why, mummy, why, all the time, and things like that. But the interrogator is another control drama, and I can control people by simply distancing myself, being aloof, not engaging in conversation. I can control energy that way. You may be able to control energy by asking questions. So why is this happening? What do you think you're going to do now? Oh, how are you going to get the kids to school? All of that sort of thing. That's your way of control. You are controlling people through that. The third control drama in the Celestine prophecy is the intimidator. They're the bullies, right? They're the ones that are in your face. You've got to fix this. Come on, leaders of the world. Come on, Trump, find a solution. Come on, Boris, find a solution. So that's the intimidator. They're in your face. You know those people, and you may well be one of those people. Chances are, and the reason I'm telling you this is because in times of stress, all of these come out the way we control in a much more ferocious way. The fourth control drama that you may think about is, and some of you have it, and it's really not going to serve you well at this time. In fact, I was thinking about this and I thought, well, if this is your control drama, you probably need to pay attention to this right at the moment. And that's the poor me. Poor me, I lost my job. Poor me, my clients are running away. Poor me, I don't have enough money in my bank account. Poor me, I didn't get to the supermarket before it shut. All of that sort of thing. That is not going to serve you. In fact, what I'm going to tell you to do is become very aware of how you're showing up at the moment. And this is what I spoke about in the last call for those of you that weren't on that Facebook Live. Now is our choice to become conscious leaders in our own family and in our own community, or to disassociate, blame everybody else, go into one of our control dramas, aloof, intimidator, interrogator, or poor me, and simply lie back and fade away. Now, here's the reason I'm telling you this, is yes, you and I need to be aware of that. I need to be aware of when I go into my aloof. You need to be aware of when you go into your control drama. But it's also a way that you can perhaps help other people around you with a very soft glove when they go into their poor me, or when they go into their intimidator, bully status, or interrogator question after question after question, or when they tend to disassociate and just pull away and be by themselves. You can really help them in this time by just helping them center. So a good book to read may be The Celestine Prophecy, another great book to read, because we all need nurturing at this time in one way or another. But the way you want to be nurtured is not necessarily the way that I want to be nurtured. And that book is The 5 Love Languages, Gary Chapman. Now, I think that's fantastic for you to read. The 5 love languages are quality time. So guess what? You may not be able to contact and go and have a beer or a wine with your best friends, but you can certainly talk to them. In fact, I'm going to suggest to you, and I was saying to Lundy before, I'm so grateful that I grew up in a pre-internet world. This is the time I'm so grateful. Even though I'm using the internet now, we never know when that's going to get shut down. So I am so grateful that I grew up in that pre-internet world. Why? Because guess what I did when I was a kid? I picked up the phone and I actually spoke to people. Guess what I did when I was in business? I picked up the phone and I actually spoke to people. You know, if you're in business at the moment, I can't tell you how many emails I've got in the last 24 hours from different service providers telling me, COVID-19, we're going to look after you. This is what we're doing, blah, 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 blah. Look, fantastic. I don't take it away. We all need to do something. We all need to have a general thing that we do for customers. But more importantly than that is you've got some great customers, people who have supported you for years, friends that are your confidants and have helped you through situations. Guess what? They're scared. They're rolling out their control drama. They need some assistance. So get on the phone and give them some quality time. That's one of the 5 love languages. Number 2, quality time gifts. Now, this may be great for your immediate family and the people that you can actually get to see, or you can even give a gift, an online greeting card, an online video, something like that. And, you don't have to run out to the shops, of course, and buy a gift, because we've all got so much stuff around our house that can be repurposed, re-energized. Giving one of your children a gift that they had a couple of years ago that they stopped playing with, and then telling them a story about how they used to play with this, and integrating with them and actually sharing time with them to play with that, may be one of the greatest gifts you can give as well. So quality time, gifts. Then there's touch. If you're locked away with your loved one, touch is very, very important. I'm not just talking about rolling around at nighttime. I'm talking about actually putting a hand on their shoulder, reassuring them, giving them that extra kiss, that extra scratchy during the day. Doing that for anybody who's in your immediate vicinity, just to reassure them. Of course, we're not allowed to touch people without gloves outside, so I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting the people that are in your immediate vicinity. So we've got gifts, quality time, and then touch. And then we've got acts of service as well. So this is phenomenal acts of service that you can get out there and actually do at the moment. So an act of service that you may be able to do is you may be able to help somebody else with a little bit of your time in their business, in their job, with their family. Maybe you're a better coach than they are with their kids at the moment who are feeling a bit struck. So use any of these techniques, the 5 love languages, Gary Chapman. Just go and Google it, and you can actually use this to your benefit at the moment. So moving on from that, I want to talk to you about our limiting beliefs, because our limiting beliefs are sort of saying, well, this can't go on much longer, and I wonder how much longer I'm going to be in lockdown, and surely this virus will clear, and all of that sort of thing. However, you have to understand, and I have to understand. So when I say you, don't think I'm talking at you, because I'm talking to myself, because I learn as much by doing this as you do. We have to understand that life as we know it is likely to change. If you were putting off travel because you're waiting to get older or save up the money to travel, guess what? Travel has changed. You may have to go for a full medical now before you can travel anywhere on the planet. Anything's likely, and different countries will have different mindsets around this. So your own limiting beliefs, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm not smart enough, I don't have anything to offer the world, gee, if I lose my job, it will be this. I have to tell you that this is the time where people who can have a positive mind and have a can-do attitude are really going to thrive in this time. So yesterday we had a call with around about 48 or so of our top clients from around the world. We're on a call for an hour and a half. Lundy and I had created the business survival blueprint based on all of our years of experience and what we've observed in the past couple of weeks that we shared with people. And I can tell you from the people that we've spoken to since and everything like that, I don't think there's one person in any of our clients that doesn't see great opportunity once they can reframe it. And framing is really, really important for you at the moment, the way you see this. You can choose to see this as an opportunity or a problem. And it's funny to me because for so many years, probably 20 years, if you looked in the front of my diary, and yes, I still carry a paper diary. If you look in the front of my diary, I have these words: always look for an opportunity in a problem. So this is what we need to do now. There are so many opportunities, but don't give away your services for free. Don't give away the baby with the bathwater. There's so many different ways you can make an income at the moment if you're in business. You just need a little bit of lateral thinking, perhaps some masterminds, throw it around with your friends and things like that. So then I want to get into a couple of really interesting things, and then sort of start to bring it to a close for today. So firstly, last week, Lundy and I were in New Zealand, and thanks to great friends and clients, Kevin Etherington and Raywin Barry, we spent last Monday shooting the first scene, if you like, or the first segment from our new film. There's many of you out there that don't know that we made a documentary in 2010, went around the world, went into 500 million homes over the time that it existed. And we're making a second one. It's been on the cards for 2 years. Strangely enough, the reason behind it, I'll talk about in a minute, but the title of that movie is called Harmony. And the reason behind it is to get people conscious about bringing ourselves back to harmony. So I'm not going to go into what we share in the movie or anything like that, but here's the greatest thing that the movie is really empowered by that sits behind it. We are in a time of great change. Now, I mentioned the Mayan calendar last time, and I mentioned 2012, 21st of December 2012, which was meant to be the move and the shift to consciousness. Everybody said it was the end of the earth. Well, guess what? It has shifted people to consciousness. There has been really 3 major spikes in the last 50 years that have shifted us to consciousness. One was the 14th of August 1987. No, I didn't need to write that down. I know that date. It was called the harmonic convergence. And we're a guy, and I was lucky enough to meet him prior to him passing on to, or graduating from this life, I should say, a guy by the name of Jose Arguelles, who at the time was a professor in the US, decided that after seeing what was written in the tomb of Paco Voltan, a great Mayan priest from the 7th century, 632, I think, if my memory serves me rightly, when he was part of the original group that entered into that tomb, and he saw in that tomb basically the Popol Vuh, the book of the Mayans, which is also the book of time. So, and he wanted to bring this to the world, and he realized that 14th of August 1987 was a very auspicious date. And it was a very auspicious date because it was something called the harmonic convergence, which happens very rarely. It's the full alignment in harmony of the planets of the solar system. So he started talking about this at university. Now, there was no internet, and he wanted to get a gathering of people in the desert in America to celebrate the harmonic convergence. Now, imagine this, 1987, no real marketing, no real internet, 200,000 people turned up, and that kick-started consciousness as we know it today. And if you look at some of the people that you've studied and you've learnt with over the while, Wayne Dyer and people like that, they were all there. And this triggered their books, and this triggered their insights, and this triggered their way of sharing that there's a different way to view the world than the material step-by-step way that, we had learnt at school. In other words, go to school, get a degree, get a job, stay in it for 40 years. That's what I learned at school. Retire, get a gold watch, enjoy your retirement, play golf and die, right? So this triggered people in 1987 to think differently. Then in 1994, it happened again. Now, it was another cosmic alignment, this one of a much lesser extent. And this is when you saw people like Deepak Chopra and James Redfield himself write the Celestine Prophecy. This when a lot of new conscious authors, Robert Bauval, Graham Hancock, those sort of people really came to the fore. I think Graham Hancock's book, Fingerprints of the Gods, was released the year after in 1995, if I remember rightly. And they wrote the book, The Orion Mystery, which was about the real purpose of the pyramids and things like that. However, the 2012, the shift to consciousness at 11:11 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time has meant that there has been a shift in consciousness. Many of you are talking about everything from past lives to energy work to you've found new vocations. You're doing different things now than you've ever done before. You're thinking differently than you thought 10 years ago. 10 years ago, many of us were entirely different people than we are today. We live in an entirely different consciousness. Now, fascinating if you look at, say, the story of Armageddon, the story of the rapture out of the Bible. Now, for those of you that are Christian on the call, this may interest you. For others, look at the symbology and symbolism behind this. When the rapture comes and people head up to heaven, those that believe in Jesus and others that stay on earth, the ones that do not, they have to make a decision. They have to make a decision. Do I go, do I now start believing in God, or do I now believe in, the other power? Let's call it Satan, the devil, Lucifer, whatever you want to call it, the dark side. Okay? So that decision is made at that point there. And then there goes into 7 years of trials and tribulations. Well, guess what? Plague of locusts happened in Kenya last week. So there may be some things that what's happening with, all the viruses and COVID that are mirroring these times, and they're getting us to make a decision. And our decision is going to be, do we believe that, the politicians will look after us? Do we believe that the system will look after us? Or do we now believe that in faith, and do we have faith in whatever we believe spiritually? And I'm unattached to what that is, that your spiritual beliefs are. Now is the time where I think many of us have to make that final decision because of whether to take a road of faith and to realize that the world does not operate the way that you and I were taught in school. Hell, they taught us that civilization was only 5,000 years old. I mean, there's so much proof. It's undisputable proof at the moment around the world, which brings me to this. And let's move on. I'll get off my soapbox because I said I wanted to share some books. I'm lucky enough, even though that we're in isolation, that I have, because I just came from New Zealand, we just grabbed some books that we wanted to have in our new bookshelf out of our storage room in New Zealand. And one of them that resonated with me, I wanted to share with you, is the story of the Templar Knights, the story of Freemasonry in the Book of Hiram. Now, I'm not promoting Freemasonry, and no, I'm not a Freemason, but I want to tell you what I learned from this. There's many things I learned from the book. It's a fabulous book written by Robert Lomas and Christopher Knight. Yes, I'm exactly right. Had to look at the book. And but what I learned from this is that there's a deep arcane wisdom that goes back millennia. And that deep arcane wisdom is now being held by certain fraternities, of which Freemasonry is just one, certain secret societies, some of which are for the good and some of which are not. Go and have a look. If you've never looked into secret societies, this could be a great time for you to have a look at Skull and Bones and see what the Bushes have been doing, and John Kerry and all of the people that have been leading our countries. Go and have a look at the Order of de Molay. Jacques de Molay was the last Grand Master of the Templar Knights, burnt at the stake in front of Notre Dame Cathedral in 1321, 7 years after he was captured. The 7 comes in a lot here, and we'll talk about that. But their deep arcane wisdom that came through these and is held in these orders, like the Order of de Molay, which is all about developing young men in America. Walt Disney, Bill Clinton, Buzz Aldrin, John Wayne, the list goes on and on and on, who came through this fraternity. Senators, rock stars, etc., you name it, they all came through, many, many successful people. The deep arcane wisdom exists, and I want to give you just one of those right now. If you look at cities around the world, the big cities, the really profound big cities, the New Yorks, for example, don't just think that people landed there in New York and went, hey, looks like a cool spot. New York was the Buffalo Run. And the Buffalo Run was where the ancient Indians for millennia went after the buffaloes, and they ran basically through Central Park or down Manhattan, and then they ran back like the wildebeest do in Africa. These are sacred paths that follow the ley lines, the energy of our earth. And the crossing points there are some of the most powerful, is some of where the earth cities are built on. Cape Town is a great example. Most people think Cape Town is the bottom of South Africa, the meeting of the Twin Oceans. No, that's a few hundred kilometres actually east of Cape Town. Sorry if you've ever been to the Cape Point to see the meeting of the oceans. It's not there. But Cape Town itself, because of Table Mountain, the biggest quartz crystal on the world, Crystal, what made the original computers, storers of knowledge, crystal skulls. Do I need to go further? London itself, Paris. What a strange place to put a city, you know. It's not even at an ocean, and a major city. So looking at this, temples were built on sacred ley lines. Stonehenge is a great example. And these are centers of energy where people drew divine wisdom and had a conduit to their gods, their spiritual beliefs. And then many of those temples were replaced by other temples, the pyramids, the Karnak temple, the temples in Babylon and things like that around the world. Many temples in America, just go and look at your ancient wisdom there. America wasn't settled by Columbus. Sorry about that. Many years before that. That's for another time. And then a lot of these, particularly in the Mesoamerican world, the temples were cut down, and when Cortez and the Spanish came in 1516, they got rid of all these temples, and guess what they did? They built churches on the site of the temples. So in many places around the world, right from Chartres in France, which is one of the most beautiful churches I've been to, built by the Templar Knights, right all the way to Mexico City, where there's some of the most beautiful churches there as well. These are built on deep ancient sites of wisdom. So this book, the Book of Hiram, just goes in and starts to share some of that ancient wisdom, and it may give you a different way to look at the world. One of the books that I love, and I'm going to talk about in a minute, actually, is this one, the I Ching, the Book of Changes. Now, this is the original version, the original Richard Wilhelm version. Just the backstory to that is that the I Ching was commissioned by the Emperor Fu He in the year 3114 BC, where he realized that we are just a microcosm of the macrocosm of the world. So guess what? The world's sick, it's going to make us sick. That's literally what he realized all the way back then. So he sent his scholars out around the world to go and investigate how the world really works. And the compass of that became the I Ching, the Book of Changes, multi-authored, edited by Confucius during his time, 1500 years later. And when Richard Wilhelm, who was a friend of Sigmund Freud's and Carl Jung's, went to China in the 1920s, he found this book and brought it to the West. So I have the original Richard Wilhelm version, incredibly technical, not a Sunday read. But I want to share in there that this is where the 5 elements came from of water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. And for those of you that are our clients on this call, you'll know that each of those relate to the questions. Water is the why question, wood is the what question, fire is the who question, earth is the when question, and metal is the how question. Now, also they relate to cycles in life. So we spend 7 years, our cells regenerate every 7 years. So when we're looking at 0 to 7 of our life, we are sitting in the water in that way. Guess where we came from? We came from the water. So the first 7 years of our life, we're so connected to spirit, which is why Dr. Ian Sanderson and other people who have really studied past lives, he has 30,000 cases of past lives before he died, have found that when people are in 0 to 7, they've locked in so much clearer to past lives, and they can go and meet people that were in their family from decades ago, etc., etc. Water and that 0 to 7 age, what's the question children ask? Why, mummy, why? Okay, so they're asking the why question, which is there. Now, the next age, 7 to 14, is the grow age. Now, that is the what age. So that's all about wood. Wood is the grow element. So that's when we really grow. We grow and develop some of our opinions, etc. The next age, 14 to 21, is the who age. So that's about who am I going to hang out, who's cool, who's not cool, etc. Then 21 to 28 is the when, that's the earth. So we've got to get grounded. People are telling us, when are you going to get a job? When are you going to settle down? And 28 to 35, we're into the how. So how am I going to make all of this work? How am I going to feed my family, etc., etc. And then the cycle goes again. 35 to 42, why? We're back in the water. Midlife crisis, guess what? Okay, it's all coming up here. 42 to 49, we're in the what should I do next? Okay, is this really what I want to do with my life? And then 49 to 56, Who do I actually want in my life? Okay, again, we're in the fire element, so we're firing relationships. 56 to 63, when am I going to retire? When am I going to have enough money? 63 to 70, how am I going to survive? And then the cycle goes again. You get the idea behind it. But what I actually wanted to share about all of this and about the ways our cells are regenerating at the moment is that you have an opportunity to look at that question from the part of life that you're in. So if you're in the 35 to 42 line, you're in the why question. So now is the time you should be asking why questions. If you're in the 42 to 49, it's the what question. The 49 to 56, the who question, so on and so forth. You can go back and look at this video if you didn't write down the questions. So these are the things that are really important for you at the moment and really important for me. The questions like, do I really want to be doing what I've been doing for the past 15 years? That's a question I've asked myself in the last couple of weeks. Do I really want the job that I'm having? That's another question that you could ask yourself as well. And do I really want the people that I'm hanging out with as well around me? Do I want to change some of my friends? Well, that's great questions to ask you at the moment. Now is the time where you should actually put this, just like this frame you're watching me through, put this boundaries around your own life, this value system and boundaries. Never before has it been more important to have our GPS value system. So I did recommend the I Ching to you. Now also this is fantastic because you can download this as an app and it can give you insights for actually what to do in the future as well, which is really, really useful. Two other books I'm going to recommend for you today. Here's a really nice feel-good read for you. I loved this book. This is the only book I think I've ever bought twice. Life is Good by George Dawson. Now, why did I buy it twice? I bought it twice because I bought it in the US many, many years ago. I started reading it on a plane. I was so spellbound, and when I got off the plane, I left it in the seat pocket. Now, normally I go, oh, that's a shame, it's meant to happen, etc., etc. But no, I bought the book again. So I'm going to read you the back of this. What makes a happy person, a happy life? In this remarkable book, George Dawson, a 101-year-old man who learned to read when he was 98 years old, reflects on the philosophies that he learnt from his father, a belief that life is so good. His father was a slave and he came from slaves, so this is really interesting. He offers valuable lessons of living and a fresh first-hand view of what's happening at the moment when he wrote the book, which was during the late 20th century. Now, I'm sure George is not alive anymore, but if you want to look at the problems that you've got in your life, if you want to look at life with a different optimistic approach and you're not sure where to go at the moment, I would suggest you try and get this book. It is a fantastic book and it will teach you so much. Now, I see today that Donald Trump has come out with some tweets on how you can create some pharmaceuticals at home to deal with the coronavirus, which, you know, I have to hand it to Donald very much so. I realised, and Lundy and I realised, the only reason he tweets so much is because he simply can't trust the mainstream media, so he wants to get his message directly out there. Love him or hate him, it triggered me to talk about this book from a great friend of mine from many, many years, Don Tolman. And this is not a book, this is the Pharmacist's Desk reference. Yes, I carried this in my luggage all the way from New Zealand. It's 2 thick volumes, 1,500 pages, I think. I'm sure you can get it online. If you have one, drag it out. As a gift, give one to a friend who may be struggling at the moment. What is the Pharmacist's Desk reference about? So in it, it has 2 things. It doesn't have how to cure the coronavirus. I'm sorry. It should have that in there, definitely. It doesn't even talk about viruses, but it does talk about the flu and it does talk about the common cold. And it gives you natural ways using probably what's in your fridge and in your medicine cupboard at home to actually cure some things and to get back to a system of health. For instance, one of the things that I learned very much from Don early on in my journey with him is the value of really quality Himalayan salt. Now, I'm talking 2005, 2004 when I first met Don. I see people are loving that. But I know it's mainstream now. But when Lundy and I got together, she was having some kidney issues at the time. I said, are you drinking Himalayan salt? She'd never thought of it. It wasn't popular at the time. And so we simply did that, and it cured that. Never had a problem since, after having some problems for some time before that. There is so much genius, pure genius in natural health in that book. But over and above that, in volume 1 it might be, in volume 1 of the book, there is also so much great ancient wisdom that I think is so relevant for our time. And I realise time's going on, so I want to share something impactful, a couple of things, because there's some big questions going on at the moment around, your children, your parents, health, all the what-ifs that's out there. What do you do with grandma? Grandma's staying in our apartment while we're in a hotel for us. So you have to secure them. You have to be aware that even if you go to the supermarket to buy some goods and you drop them off there, that those things, may have some infection at the moment. So just be safe and be careful with that. There's a lot of people, strangely enough, when I was at the supermarket yesterday, I was blown away by how many over there. Later on, we went to the pharmacy to pick up a couple of things, and I was blown away by how many people over 70 were in the pharmacy. Many of them don't have another way to operate these days. So if you've got anything to do with aged care, and I know if Julie Robinson's on the call, she'll be able to give some great comments about how to actually help with the elderly as well in this time. We have a responsibility. The elders hold our wisdom. And the first level in the history of the world that I wrote about in What If You Were God so many years ago, and this is where I want to finish the call today, is about existence. And existence was the first level when everything came to the amoebas, the singular cell life on the planet, and we all know about that, and that lasted for billions of years. And then we came to the agricultural society in Turkey and the Nevada and things like that, absolute pinnacle of the agricultural society. Then we moved into the era of exploration, and the Phoenicians sailed the world, the Egyptians sailed the world. I mean, in my new book, I talk about the way the Egyptians actually seeded Scotland and Ireland, which is something not a lot of people know about. So that was the age of exploration. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, or longer than that, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, the Minoans sailed the world, the Bronze Age. Then we entered the era of faith, the fourth era in human history. Christ, Buddha, Mohammed, the things, the era of believing in something, moving from the old gods of Horus and Sobek, the crocodile god, and into this era of divine faith. That was the fourth impact. The fifth impact to us was industry, the Industrial Revolution, Robert Stephenson, the steam engine, etc. Sixth was technology. And technology came out as hard and fast. The first computer was actually built in, I think, about 1836 from memory. Binary code computer. That's all we are, is binary code, pluses and minuses. Electromagnetism, as I said the other day, one of the four forces of nature. And then the seventh impact on the planet was the shift to consciousness in 21 December 2012. So is there an eighth and a ninth? I don't know, but things have sped up. And I think what we're in now is we're in that cusp. We're in that real cusp of where we have a choice. And the choice comes our own hearts, as I said the other day, because everything happens in sevens. 7 oceans of the world, 7 orifices in the human body, 7 days of the week. And I talked about the 7 laws in the I Ching just before as well, the 7 years that our cells go by and all of that sort of stuff. 7s are very important to us. So if, and I say if, the world operates in 7s, then it's going to return to the first thing that I wrote about. It's going to move from consciousness to existence. And that's not good. We want to be in consciousness. We want the world to be a great place. In fact, every single spiritual person, call them what you like, every single person has written about in the last 50 years, from Rudolf Steiner to Edgar Cayce to Greg Braden to anybody that you're watching at the moment has written about. We have a choice, and this is our time. And this choice that we make in our hearts at the moment is going to define whether this thing that we call earth and society and civil society remains civil, or whether we move back to existence. And quite frankly, the things that are happening certain things that are happening on the planet are questionable. So look at your own government. They're locking down. Guess what? Some countries are kicking people who aren't nationals out. They're kicking foreign nationals out. They're turning them away. Does that sound like a tick for diversity? Does that sound like a tick for every person is created equal? Now, you can argue that they're doing that to safeguard citizens, but I thought we lived in a global world and I thought we were global citizens. So shame on you, governments, for kicking people out of countries where they choose to want to stay in those countries. Many of us today are in very, very different relationships. Men are in relationships with men, women with women. Different people are living life differently. Couples that are living relationships that span borders. Couples that are living relationships where one was born in one country and one was born in another country. Guess what? If you hold a different passport than your lover or partner at the moment, there may be some issues for you if we move into a world of existence. So you and I, we have a choice. And it's a really positive choice. Here's 3 things that we can do to round off the call. Just 3 things. Number 1, connect. We have a time to connect. And if I go back to the start of our call today, I talked about the Celestine prophecy. I talked about helping people move through their control dramas, which they'll naturally go back to at the moment. I talked about the 5 ways in which, the 5 love languages, ways in which you can connect with people. Pick up the phone. Talk to people. Talk to your clients. Talk to your friends. Talk to those that you love. Talk to your family. Make amends with the parents and the children that you've had disagreements with. That's number 1. Number 2, I talked about the animals of the world and connecting with your cat, your dog, your horse, your budgie, your goldfish, and talking with them as well, and to read the books about animal communication. Animals are not lesser beings. In many cases, they're higher beings. And if you want to read about plant communication is higher still. I watched a documentary with Lundy on the BBC about 5 years ago. I said after that documentary, I'll probably never eat a lettuce again, just because of the consciousness that's in plants. So go to your backyard, hug a tree, talk to them. They'll grow, they'll nurture you. In fact, I'll give you this bit of absolute genius that doesn't come from me. I'm simply reiterating what other people have taught me. Take off your shoes. Go and lie down in nature if you have the opportunity. Go into your backyard, lie down in it. Maybe wait till dark and strip down to your shorts or bikini and go and lie on the grass in nature. Forget about the ants and the other friends that are around there, but go and experience nature and reconnect with Gaia. Help her heal and she will help us heal. And number 3 is look at the patterns that is happening in the world at the moment. Question the societal patterns that you and I grew up with. The way in which the world works is not the way in which the world works. Go and have a look at the system behind the system. Go and have a look at who can benefit, who has control. When fear is created, who makes the most money in the world? And guess what? If you're a pharmacist at the moment, you're probably doing pretty well and good for you. But all of us are getting behind pharmaceutical companies at the moment and saying they're not such bad people, but maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I'll leave that up for you to decide. But look at the system at the moment and question the system. I hope that's been useful for you guys today. It's up on Facebook Live. Share it if it resonates with you. Share it if some of these messages resonate with you. I'm just trying to help you. And while we all sit around and be best, I'm just the sergeant in the world. I'm not a general. But you too can be corporals, sergeants, captains, lieutenants, and whatever you choose to be. Bye-bye for now.